In-home and in-school strategies for escape, attention, and access to tangibles, presented by Rachel Dowdoo. Environmental modifications for attention, escape, and tangible maintained problem behavior. A Parent's Guide. In this short parent training module, we will be providing examples of environmental modifications that you can implement at home or suggest to your child's teachers or therapists that may reduce your child's problematic behaviors for the following functions of attention maintained, tangible access maintained, and escape maintained functions of problematic behavior. We will be providing examples of modifications which you can implement in your child's designated workspace. You can suggest to your child's teachers during the next EIP meetings, and we will also provide resources as well as empirically supported studies that identify school-based and in-home-based intervention strategies which have been used to reduce disruptive behaviors for students with developmental disabilities, including autism spectrum disorder. So what exactly is maintaining your child's problematic behavior? Attention. Often, attention behaviors occur when the student does not know the correct or appropriate way to ask for attention. Teach appropriate ways to ask for attention. For nonverbal students, create a visual for attention. Use role-playing and written scripts to practice asking for attention. Whining, fighting, talking back, swearing, and yelling out can all be attention-seeking behaviors. When you think of attention, don't assume it's good attention. Attention can come in many forms, from teacher reprimands to student ridicule to praise. Escape. These are behaviors that are used to get out of something, to get out of what you ask, work. It could certainly be types of work tasks, like maybe that are too difficult or too aversive. Some kiddos just avoid any type of demand altogether. Think of any aversive task, including schoolwork, activities or skills that are difficult for the client. Even adaptive skills like brushing teeth can reinforce problem behaviors of escape. For example, many children with ASD are terribly afraid of going to the dentist and may engage in elopement to even vocal protests, which can even be a form of escape. Tangibles. Think access to iPads or highly preferred toys, even access to highly preferred activities like riding a bike or jumping on the trampoline. Denying access to the former reinforce problematic behaviors in children with ASD. Why do many kids yell out instead of raising their hands? Because when you raise your hand, you don't always get called on, and you may be more likely to get attention if you just yell out. The inappropriate behaviors might be more successful than the appropriate option. This includes access to attention, which is also a tangible. Functions of behavior. Identifying the function of behavior helps us to prevent problem behavior, teach our kids better ways to have their needs met, and ensure consistency across all environments. We observe your child in his or her environments, describe what is going on before and after the problem behavior occurs. Identify the function, teach a replacement behavior that still meets the same need as the problem behavior, and reinforce the replacement behavior. Understanding the function of the behavior helps us to decrease the problem behavior and increase appropriate or desired behaviors. Some of the most common and effective treatments include timeout, differential reinforcement procedures, non-contingent reinforcement, and functional communication training. Utilizing a timeout for attention has shown to be effective at decreasing attention-maintained aberrant behaviors. Sensory stimulation. A person's own movements, actions, feel good to that person or individual. For example, a child twirls his or her hair as they sit for an extended amount of time. If twirling hair gives that individual the sensory input they're seeking, then hair twirling will continue. Escape. Something is or signals an undesirable situation and the person wants to get away from it. For example, a therapist or an RBT says, "Let's wash your hands," and the learner runs out of the bathroom. Access to attention. Someone desires for access to social interactions. For example, the child screams, "Look at me." If screaming gets access to attention, then screaming will continue. Essentially, that is reinforcing that behavior. Access to tangibles. Someone wants to access to it like a specific activity or thing. For example, Michelle takes the iPad away from Aaron, so Aaron pinches her. If pinching gets access to that iPad, then guess what? Aaron's going to continue to pinch Michelle. A quick tips guide for in-home based modifications. Organization is key. Having items placed in clear, organized, and labeled bins and are within reasonable access, we don't really want to taunt our children. Organization also includes a consistent routine. If attention is the maintaining factor, planning on a more isolated work environment with limited to no distractors are ideal. No audience, no problem. With caution and safely and appropriately implemented, deadbolts and other internal locking systems and mechanisms may be considered for escape-maintain problematic behaviors. Allow the student to take frequent breaks during difficult work activities. Provide time alone or time to regroup after a negative event. Allow self-monitoring or self-regulation where age appropriate. Avoid large or noisy crowds. Avoid long delays. Avoid repetitive tasks such as writing out spelling tasks. We don't want busy work. We want quality work. Work with purpose. Avoid power struggles. Avoid long periods of desk work. Avoid negative language such as no or stop. Avoid reprimands altogether. The objective is to have the participant be willing in the appropriate behavior. Avoid talking about the student's problem behavior in their presence. It doesn't do anything to help the situation, except debilitate their morale, as well as decrease their motivation. A quick procedural guide for in-home based modifications, NCR. Non-contingent reinforcement has been demonstrated to effectively reduce destructive or disruptive behaviors maintained by adult attention. In a study by Iwata et al. 1993, NCR involves response-independent delivery of the stimuli, usually on a time-based schedule, that have been demonstrated to maintain the problem behavior in the past. Vollmer 1993, who used NCR with 3 clients whose SIB was maintained by social attention. Initially, attention was delivered almost continuously, while SIB no longer produced attention, i.e. extinction. The schedule of attention was faded gradually over time until non-contingent attention was delivered only once every 5 minutes. The SIB of all 3 students was reduced to low levels with the NCR treatment. 1994, Hoboken. Replicated and extended the findings of Vollmer 1993, showing that NCR could also be applied to behaviors other than SIB, and by demonstrating that a dense schedule of NCR was more effective initially than a lean schedule in reducing disruptive behavior. Vollmer, 1993. A quick procedural guide for in-home. A quick tips guide for in-school-based modifications. To begin, post all classroom rules and daily schedules in prominent locations throughout the classroom. Have preferential seating. Have needed materials that are easily accessible. Rearrange the room or furniture if necessary. Create separate or designated work areas for students where applicable. Create quiet areas. Change the lighting, adjust sounds. That includes volume of music, voices, etc. Minimize or eliminate distracting materials. Play music. Moving the student closer to the teacher is also a helpful tip. Move the student away from other peers that might be instigating. Provide a barrier between students that are helpful and students that might instigate other students. Eliminate distracting items in the classroom. That also includes students. A quick tips guide for in-school based modifications. Continued. Set clear expectations and rules in the classroom. Preview rules and behavioral expectations. Have structured daily schedules. Create visual schedules and preview schedules. Create schedules based on preferred activities in the daily routines, and be able to be flexible in the schedule and make adjustments where applicable. Have non-preferred activities mixed in with the preferred activities. Have students involved in their own planning. Have planned activities for transition times. Have routines or signals that will prepare students for transitions. Minimize downtime as much as possible. Have predictability. Everybody feels more comfortable with a routine. Have structured, non-instructional periods. That includes recess or leisure time, or social skills building time where kids actually have time to engage in their own planning. It has to be fun. It can't be rigid all the time. A quick procedural guide for in-school based modifications. NCA, or non-contingent attention. A student will less likely to use attention-seeking behaviors if they are already getting attention to begin with. This strategy involves giving students a regular schedule of attention no matter what they're doing. In a classroom, this could look like a teacher stopping by a student's desk every few minutes to see if they need help. Having scheduled teacher time with a student to give teacher attention to a student, or scheduled peer breaks to provide peer attention. I've used a timer system where I set a timer on my iPhone to set intervals, and at every interval I go and provide attention to that student. It's as easy as that. FCT, or Functional Communication Training, was introduced in 1985 by Carr and Durand, which was a treatment for problem behavior for 4 children with developmental disabilities. A vocal response that resulted in teacher attention, for example, I am doing good work, was taught to the children for whom attention was taught to be maintaining their problem behavior. A different vocal response, like I don't understand, that resulted in teacher assistance was taught to the children for whom escape from difficult tasks was thought to be maintaining their problem behavior. So what was maintaining these kids' behavior was basically an escape. These procedures resulted in acquisition of these vocal responses and substantial reductions in the problem behavior for all 4 children. In the 20-plus years since the publication of the Carr and Durand 1985 study, FCT has emerged as the most published function-based treatment for problem behavior. So essentially, you're providing these individuals with a functional communication, the language to get their needs met. So if a kid hits because they want access to something and they just don't know how to get it, or they're just used to hitting because that always garners the attention that they need, you would say no, or excuse me, you wouldn't say no. You would say use your words, or you would model the words for them. What do you need? I want. Instead of hitting or using aggression or attention-seeking behaviors to get access to the tangibles or to have their needs met. Functional communication is a very powerful tool, especially if it's implemented in the earlier stages and it can be easily built upon. I personally prefer it. As stated before, FCT is a powerful tool because it's also very flexible. You do provide the individuals with the physical language if they're able, but as we're familiar with, many children diagnosed with ASD are nonverbal. So FCT can also function with nonverbal cues such as cue cards or sign language or sign cards or PECs and picture cards as well. Additional considerations for procedural modifications in the classroom could be asking and teaching the children how to ask for attention, like raising their hand by asking for help, requesting an item or activity, asking questions, or even seeking assistance from peers, verbally requesting a break or mandating for a break using their verbal cue cards, requesting to leave a situation or terminate an activity they're no longer comfortable with, or verbalizing the fact that they just need to be alone for a while, requesting an alternative activity if this activity is just too aversive for them at the moment, appropriately communicating a protest response. No one is saying that you can't say no. You're allowed to express your lack of interest or your lack of motivation or just not wanting to. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Negotiating a start time for a task is also extremely effective in the classroom. Alternative behaviors for sensory feedback is effective. Overall, requesting movement, such as stretch balls and squeeze balls, have been proven to be effective methods in the classroom as well. In either classroom or home-based settings, one should always consider reinforcement procedures where properly trained and applicable to implement them. Consider positive reinforcement or differential reinforcement of appropriate behaviors, differential reinforcement of other behaviors, differential reinforcement of low rates of behavior, differential reinforcement of high rates of behavior, differential reinforcement of incompatible behavior, and differential reinforcement of communicative behavior. Overall, we want to create and provide strategies to increase independent compliance. So here are some additional considerations that optimize success. We want to create the best environment to have the most successful rates going forward. So think of something as innocuous as color. In a 2016 study published by In-Front Psychology, yellow was determined to produce the most sensory overload, with red as the least. Yet many experts say to avoid all primary colors together. With this in mind, unless you're sticking with white, the best solution is just to observe the colors that your child does prefer or doesn't prefer before deciding and moving forward. Consider lighting. Filtered light is the best option and can easily be provided by replacing the light switch with a dimmer switch. Organization is always key. A clutter-free space is critical for calm. Think about how difficult it would be to go grocery shopping if there wasn't an organized system in place. Imagine if the oranges and apples were with the toilet paper and the cleaning products. It'd be a mess. Imagine Walmart, just a free-for-all without any aisles or organization. Would you not be lost? Consider the mind of your child. They are as anxious and confused as you are, so providing the smallest respite may provide the most optimal benefits. Put items in clear containers with visual labels and put them where they are easily accessible for the youngest learners. Consider bedding. Some children even benefit from weighted bedding and some do not, so consult with your medical doctor or your pediatrician first. Do though select a soothing color and a soft texture, as you would with anyone. Electronics, electronics, the infamous iPad. Tangibles, especially access to electronics not limited to an iPad, have been known to create a sensory overload for children diagnosed with ASD. Additionally, a white noise machine is the only appropriate device that should be used when needed where applicable. A final word of caution. As mentioned earlier, deadbolts and exterior locks are a consideration. Children with ASD are prone to wander or elope or run away. If this is the case with your child, you may want to consider some type of locking system. A deadbolt with a key is one of the most secure locks. A con: for some, the addition of an extra key and having to locate it in the event of an emergency is a serious drawback and a consideration. A pro, however, is that there are a wide variety of keyless lock systems to consider, like card, swipe systems, biometric systems like fingerprint detection, and digital keypad deadlocks. Consider time out. Time out can be appropriate punishment for attention-seeking behaviors because it actually removes the attention. A time out does not need to be in a corner or in a dark hallway, just any time away from the attention. It can be brief. If attention is a powerful reinforcer for your child, this intervention can work quickly. For extreme behaviors, some schools use a timeout room. However, you use timeout, make sure that the reinforcing aspect of the attention are actually being removed. The time-in environment should be pretty awesome, and it should be a fun experience to have to miss out on. Figure out if you will have the criteria for implementing time out and time in. Once the child calms down, stops crying, they should know that they have an actual procedure and rules. You have to give them an explanation. Timeout should not be ended with inappropriate behavior is occurring. You will start timeout immediately or will start once disruptive behaviors have actually ended. Here are a few additional resources and reference that you can use for further research. I hope this presentation and parent training has been beneficial. Thank you.